Hey all you busy bees out there. Today I'm going to show you how to make my cute little cross stitch pillows. So when I do the stitching on my pillows, I save all my leftovers in all different colors and count sizes, and that's what I stitch on. So some pillows turn out bigger or smaller depending on the count size. The stitch counts are 24 by 24, excluding all of the different borders. I've used several different borders for my stitch cards. So for example, right here in my Happy Farm Girl pattern, all of these are 24 by 24 count. You just take off the little chicken legs. And same with my Farm Girl Fall. And Quilty Love, they're all 24 by 24. And I've also used some of my Vintage Christmas. So all you have to do is pop one into whatever border you've chosen. So for these two I'm showing you today, you don't even have to use a border. I use my new little bitty boards. They're 7 inches square and they keep everything organized and small enough to fit inside your project bags. So here's everything you need to make one pillow. I use leftover pieces from my wool projects. I use a safety pin, little vintage pins, whatever, to put the buttons on. I use buttons that match, and I use different sizes. I use my cute little buttons. They come in packages now in 6 different colorways, and within each package are several different sizes and several different designs of buttons. So I have this big jar that I put a lot of my buttons in so I can see them all together at once. And then when it comes time for the pillow, I just dump them out, kind of choose 3 different sizes, 3 different colors. So how I get the wool on is I iron it on. You could use Wonder Under. I use Easy Steam by Pellon, and you can just get it at Joann's, but I cut it into strips. And then I like to use 100% wool stuffing. Speaking of wool, these are all my wool pieces. They come in 10-inch squares. I have a lot of different colors that match my fabrics, and it's really fun to use. I keep little bits and leftovers in bowls, and then I can just kind of go through them and pick and choose and chop off little squares or rectangles, whatever I need to use for the back of the pillow. So I stitched this for my Vintage Christmas, and I didn't use a border on it. I've chosen my back fabric, and now I'm going to square it up. For this one, I just cut 3/4 of an inch past the cross stitches. I do one side first, turn it around using all lines of my rulers to make sure that it's straight everywhere, and I cut 3/4 of an inch past the stitching lines on all 4 sides. Okay, now it's all squared up and ready to sew into a pillow. I use my 5-inch stackers. I just keep them all together, leftovers, and I'll just choose one. This one is from my Vintage Happy 2 fabric, and I just place it right side down. I do not trim the backing fabric. I just place it right side down. I've already sewn this one, and I just wanted to show you that I take approximately a 1/4 inch seam, but I just use the edge of my zipper foot really. And I sew all the way around it twice. I don't really back stitch. I just go around the stitching twice, and then I like to trim. That's why I like to keep my backing piece bigger. I don't have to worry about it shifting if I cut them the same size, and then I just go ahead and trim after. After I've got it all trimmed, now it's time to cut the back. I like to sew all the way around the outside so it's all smooth around the outside, and then I cut the back, but you have to pull it apart before I can cut this little piece. I use some sharp scissors, and I make sure it's pulled apart so I don't cut into my stitching. And I just start with a little cut, and then I take small scissors because I want to be able to control. And I really don't make that big of a cut. I just need to make sure that I can turn it right side out. Okay, so now that I have my little cut, I just gently turn it right side out, starting with one corner at a time. And I just try to be really careful because of my cross stitch. Just want to keep everything intact until I get it semi-turned out, and then I shape it. So when I say shape it, just kind of use my fingertips to push out the corners. And I don't want you to think that with my applique I use this tool for shaping, but don't use it for cross stitch, it's too pointy. So I just grab a crochet hook because it's rounded, and I kind of very gently push those corners out until I'm happy with the way they look, and I just make sure to use a hook that isn't too sharp. Once you have it shaped the way that you like it, then it's time for the stuffing. Now I told you that I use the 100% wool. You don't have to, I just prefer it. I like how dense it makes the pillow. It kind of makes it heavy. I don't really want to use, sawdust or walnut shells or anything in these. I like to just use the stuffing. And you just kind of need to pull it apart to kind of make it fluffy. Again, I start with the corners on these, and I just kind of start tucking in all the way around the outside, and I leave the very center until last. So now I'm getting into the middle here. You can see how it kind of folds in the centers where that cut is. And I just make sure I put some stuffing at the top and the bottom of that fold to kind of push it out so it doesn't remain that way. And the last thing I do is fill in the center so that it's nice and puffy. And just when I think it's full enough, I usually add a little bit more. And I just want the front to be really firm, and then I know that when I sew the back together, it'll be nice and tight, the whole thing. And how I sew it is I just use regular thread, I knot it at the end, and I just do a quick whip stitch. Now again, these stitches are going to be covered with the wool, so I'm not too worried about them. I just want them to stay in place. So I just go down one way, and then I go back up the other way, and I knot it off. So now that my stitching is all completed, the pillow is ready for the wool. So I've already ironed onto one side of the wool, and then I'm just going to kind of trim it down, kind of hold it up to the pillow and see how much wool I need, how wide to cover those stitches. Then I just have to peel the paper off of one side, which is easier said than done sometimes. So sometimes if you can't get it peeled off, I can either grab a pin and use that for the corner and try to get it off that way. This is actually the hardest part. Once you get it peeled off, you can see that there's the shiny side that needs to iron down. And I just stick it on the pillow and I just press it. So I can't show you the pressing because I don't want to press on my mat, but I just wanted to show you use a really hot iron, and you just press it down till it covers the stitches, and then you go ahead and do the same thing with the other square. So the first one I do is a rectangle, but then I like to do a little square and kind of offset it. I also wanted to show you that instead of just using the pin for the corners, that sometimes you can just take the pin and score the back of the paper so that it's easier to kind of rip off like that. So with the square, I just kind of place it a little bit offset and kind of to the side and go ahead and press it as well. So now my stitches are covered. I've got my wool on there. I just think it's so fun to use. It's really easy, and I like the texture that the wool adds. You could use fabric, but I like the wool. It's thicker, it's nicer. And then I just grab my pin and start putting my buttons on. I start with the smallest to the largest. because when you turn it over to put it into the pillow, the largest will be on the back and the small will be on the top. Yay! Okay, one finished. This is for my Farm Girl Fall, and this one's from the Vintage Christmas, and through the magic of editing, I'm going to hurry and finish it. And then I'll have 2 pillows all done without the borders. They look cute without borders, with borders, with the wool, buttons to match each one of them. I just think they're really fun. They're really easy to make, and they're a quick stitch. They make fun gifts, and they look really cute displayed together for holidays or whatever. I hope you have fun making your own little cross stitch pillows, and I'll chat with you next time.